So, Boruto has returned, with the first chapter of Two Blue Vortex dropping recently, which means that the Naruto universe is once again getting its story told, and that feels good. Especially when you consider the fact that the first chapter of Two Blue Vortex was incredible. Everything from the outfits to the political changes to the motivations of these perfectly aged up characters was done to perfection. Genuinely, if you found anything to hate on in this chapter, you might just be a hater. Now, could you say that I'm biased because I'm a very big Boruto fan and it's been 4 months since I got a new chapter? Maybe, but I think I'm being unbiased when I say that this was the greatest chapter of manga ever released. I'm kidding, obviously, but the outfits were crazy. But outside of the outfits, we also got some absolutely wild developments out of Chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex. Developments that might shake up the entirety of the Naruto universe forever. See, in Chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex, not only did we get to see that Himawari has now committed herself to being a ninja, that Ada knows that Sarada and Sumire were unaffected by her omnipotence ability, and that a person that I didn't believe was going to be elected Hokage actually became the 8th Hokage, but we also got borderline confirmations on some of my wildest theories. As in this chapter, it was all but confirmed that Himawari does, in fact, have Sage of Six Pass Chakra. Not only is the theory that Sasuke is already dead being strengthened, but his corpse also might have been desecrated, and Sarada may not have to battle against Ada. Ada might actually be on Sarada's side. So many things happen to this chapter that play into so many ongoing theories that we have that we gotta talk about, which is why finding a title for today's video is a bit tough because there's so many things this video could be about. Which is why today we're doing a rundown on Chapter 81 of Boruto, or Chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex, but I'm gonna tentatively call it Himawari has Sage of Six Pass Chakra, Sasuke is dead and Code took his eyeball, and Sarada's boot heels are awesome. That should be good for SEO, right? Whatever, you're here already. It doesn't matter. Let's get to talking about this chapter. But before I get to talking about anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like the idea of me talking about some of your favorite manga, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I talk everything that's not Naruto or Boruto. And if you like the idea of me talking about Naruto, Boruto, and all other anime, then you're gonna love my anime podcast, Who Talks Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata talk about everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. But before we get into all that, today we gotta talk about our favorite reoccurring sponsor to the page, Factor. Factor is probably my favorite sponsor to this page because there is no sponsor on this page that I use more than Factor. See, I'm a very busy guy. I post 7 YouTube videos a week. Not to mention, I also try to socialize and stay in shape. And I have 2 dogs and a girlfriend that I like to keep happy. But Factor allows, if I'm too busy with my summer goals but still want to eat well, that I always have options. I can skip the trip to the grocery store, the cooking, the prepping, the sauteing, and just throw a meal in a microwave for 2 minutes and know that not only is it dietitian approved, but also tasty. Fresh, never frozen meals that get me back to crushing my goals as fast as possible. And listen, there's some days that I don't leave this chair. And on days like that, I gotta eat lean to stay lean, which is why I love that Factor offers calorie-conscious meals, which are not only calorie-conscious, but also delicious and dietitian approved, and all clock in at under 550 calories. But there's a big difference between me saying something and me showing you something, so let's go for a little trip. And today we're eating roasted garlic chicken. Let me show you how easy the prep is on these meals. All I have to do is slide my meal out of its protective casing, punch a couple of holes in the film like so, throw in the microwave for 2 minutes, and we're off to the races. And boom, my meal is done, but let's see how it tastes. That is as good as it is convenient. Listen, with tastes like that and convenience to boot, I personally can find way more time in my schedule to do the things I love and the things I need to. Whether it be entertaining you or getting in the ocean and surfing, Factor makes it possible. So what are you guys waiting for? Head to factor75.com or use the link below and enter code NCHammer2350 for 50% off your first box. That's factor75.com or use link below and enter code NCHammer2350 for 50% off your order today. You shouldn't have to compromise nutrition or flavor to get your time back. So can we talk about the chapter now? Let's talk about the chapter. So Chapter 1 of Boruto Shippuden, or Two Blue Vortex, is out. And it opens up with just an incredible colorized panel of Sarada waiting outside of the Hokage's office. And I don't care what you think, this outfit is iconic. Tons of people are saying that Sarada looks too similar to Bayonetta, and I just don't ride with that ideology. Yes, Sarada does have short hair and glasses, but that doesn't make her Bayonetta. This outfit is perfection. From the earrings to the choker to the oversized jacket to the weird loose high-heeled boots, everything about it is incredible. It's legitimately a streetwear fit you would see in LA today. And honestly, I think that's what Kishimoto is going for, because a big part of Boruto is the fact that it's Naruto's world coming into the modern day. And thus people's fashion in Boruto, and definitely now Two Blue Vortex, actually parallels a lot of the street fashion that we see in the modern day. Pretty much every single outfit that we see from characters in this first chapter mirrors outfits that you would see in fashion districts of Tokyo, like Harajuku, where younger people go to their favorite designer boutique stores. And listen, if you've never been to Japan, fashion is crazy there. You don't step outside in sweatpants. Everybody dresses up always. If you go to Tokyo with anything less than your best clothes, you're gonna feel underdressed. So it's revealed to us in the first couple of pages of the manga that the reason that Sarada is at the Hokage's office is because obviously Ada's brainwashing didn't work on her. And thus Sarada is pleading with our current Hokage that the Hokage and all of Konoha need to give Boruto a chance to explain himself. However, the Hokage, who was not who I guessed would be the 8th Hokage, says that what Boruto did was unforgivable. So Nick, who is this 8th Hokage? Is it Kakashi? Did he step back up? No, it's not Kakashi. It's Shikamaru, which isn't crazy. We all knew that Shikamaru becoming the 8th Hokage was a possibility. However, I had penned Kakashi to step back up as he was the 6th Hokage and he's still in the village. And a Hokage dying early in their term, being replaced with a previous Hokage, was kind of the standard, at least in Konoha's history, as Hiruzen stepped back up as Hokage after Minato's death. But apparently there was enough good candidates within Konoha that they didn't need to go backwards looking for a Hokage and decided to go for Shikamaru. And considering the fact that Kakashi never really wanted to be the Hokage in the first place, him becoming the Hokage twice probably wasn't in the cards for him. They probably asked him to be Hokage and he said no. But then again, the only person I can think of who would want to be Hokage less than Kakashi would be Shikamaru. As Shikamaru, who was not only aid for Naruto, but also Kakashi, understood the amount of work that being the Hokage is. But I have no animosity whatsoever towards Shikamaru being the 8th Hokage. One, he looks sick in the Hokage cloak, I'm not gonna lie. And two, with Shikamaru becoming the 8th Hokage, he's actually the first ever Hokage to not come from a nepotistic line. Hashirama and Tobirama were brothers. Hashirama and Tobirama taught Hiruzen, who taught Jiraiya, who taught Minato, who is the father of Naruto. Minato taught Kakashi, and Tsunade is not only Hashirama's granddaughter, but also the student of Hiruzen. Every single Hokage in the history of Hokage is either related to a previous Hokage or was taught by one. And thus, Shikamaru is the first Hokage to not come from that incredibly nepotistic line, which is cool. It's a sign of the changing of times in Konoha. Though, I mean, obviously the times are changing kind of against the will of Konoha, but whatever. Outside of this, there's also another kind of random development out of Shikamaru becoming the 8th Hokage, and that is that Konohamaru has become Shikamaru's Hokage's aide. Which, like, I don't hate, it's just weird. Because here's the thing, we all knew that Konohamaru and Naruto were close. I mean, they were basically brothers, and Boruto viewed Konohamaru like a big brother. But what I didn't know is that Konohamaru and Shikamaru were close. But then again, when I sit and think about it, I don't know who would have been Shikamaru's Hokage aide outside of maybe Ino. Because in the fact that Ino is the head of the interrogation squad and maintaining the bubble around Konoha that senses all chakra signatures, which is incredibly important in Konoha's defense, taking her away from those roles to be the Hokage's aide would be a massive downgrade. Technically, this is kind of a good situation for Konohamaru though, as it puts Konohamaru in the Hokage's office. And since we've now seen that a Hokage's aide can become Hokage, this does actually give credence towards the possibility of Konohamaru becoming a Hokage one day. But since Naruto will most likely at one point or another be released from the Daikoku 10 and probably resume his role as Hokage, because Shikamaru will give it up in a heartbeat, I just don't see enough time for Konohamaru to actually become Hokage. However, a lot is revealed to us during this conversation between Sarada and the 8th Hokage Shikamaru. And the most important thing that's revealed is that Konoha is actually using Ada's clairvoyance. As Konohamaru says, if he's innocent, why did he run? There's also information from Ada's clairvoyance, which means that Ada and Konoha now have an entirely working and functional give and take relationship, which is not great for Konoha, because Ada doesn't really care about Konoha, she just cares about Kawaki. And this might mean that Konoha is becoming more and more dependent on Ada's clairvoyance. And since Ada can lie about her clairvoyance, this might put Konoha in a sticky situation at some point, but we haven't gotten there yet. Now, the conversation between Sarada and Shikamaru ends in an awesome way. Sarada says that Shikamaru doesn't believe her because her father is Sasuke, who's also a rogue ninja. And Shikamaru's like, this has nothing to do with Sasuke, yada yada. But Sarada is like, the 7th Hokage, Naruto, once returned my father back to the village. Which means, by the way, that Sarada now actually knows a lot more about Sasuke's past than she did pre-time skip, which means that she could possibly know about people like Itachi, but also because she knows that Naruto gave up everything to bring back Sasuke to the village, she tells Shikamaru that my example is Lord 7th, not you. As Sarada's sole purpose in life now is to bring Sasuke and Boruto back to the village, making Sarada in the post-time skip our Naruto. See, not only does Sarada want to be like Naruto, she also wants to become Hokage. And in these just couple of panels, we have now established the fact that Sarada is gonna be our person within the village trying to change everybody's mind about their friend, Boruto, and Boruto is gonna be our Sasuke. However, in this circumstance, Boruto's innocent, obviously, which for me has cemented the fact that Sarada will be the 9th Hokage. The fact that the first chapter of part 2 opens with her, and she's making points very similar to points that Naruto made to the village when he was trying to get Sasuke back, while also claiming that Naruto is her idol, pretty much wraps it up in a fine little bow for me. After this conversation, we see Naruto and Hinata trapped in the Daikokuten, and they haven't aged, which is good for their peaks, I guess. But the reason that we're seeing Naruto and Hinata in the Daikokuten is because Kawaki's going to visit them, which means that Kawaki himself can enter the Daikokuten, which means that the Daikokuten for him operates more like Kamui than how Ishiki used it, because Ishiki could store things in the Daikokuten and pull things out of the Daikokuten, but not people, and most importantly, not himself. See, Ishiki had the ability to shrink himself and bring himself back up to regular size, but we never saw him store himself in the Daikokuten, which I believe he would have done to escape some of the battles that he was losing, like his battle against Kashin Koji. And thus, this brings us to the conclusion that Kawaki's actually better with Ishiki's powers than Ishiki ever was, which is slightly corroborated by something that we see later on in the manga that I'll cover in a second. After we see Naruto and Hinata in the Daikokuten, we get to see Sumire, who more likely than not isn't really a shinobi anymore. See, even pre-time skip, Sumire was dedicating herself more to the development of shinobi wear than ninja work. And the reason that I don't believe that she's a shinobi anymore is mostly because when we see her, she's wearing a tie and a dress, which, like, you could fight in, I guess. But everything about the outfit doesn't really scream I'm going to battle in this. But the dichotomy between Sarada and Sumire's outfits kind of makes me happy, as Sarada looks like your goth friend and Sumire looks like your pixie friend. They look like two friends with completely different fashion choices walking next to each other. And I don't know, that scratches my brain. What's revealed to us through Sarada and Sumire's conversation, however, is that omnipotence, that is Ada's ability to brainwash everybody on Earth, actually has gotten stronger with time. That is to say, when Ada first uses omnipotence to make Kawaki's wish reality, a lot of people had doubts about the memories that were just implanted into their brains. However, as more time has gone on, 3 years, that's how long the time skip was, these new seeded ideas have become more and more cemented, which actually might give us a clue into why Sasuke was able to break out of Ada's brainwashing when Sarada was pleading to him to save Boruto. Because in that moment, Ada's brainwashing had just happened. That was the weakest that omnipotence had ever been, and thus he was in the most fragile moment possible to be broken out of those memories. So fortunately, we can take a little bit of the credit of Sasuke doing an incredible thing away, because if Sarada had waited another week, Sasuke wouldn't have listened. I mean, it's still an incredible thing that Sasuke did, but just a little bit less incredible now, which makes me smile. But what's truly wild about Sarada and Sumire being together is that they end up talking to Ada, who they full on are telling about the fact that they're trying to convince the Hokage that Boruto is not evil, which means Sarada and Sumire are being completely outright about the fact that Ada's brainwashing didn't work on them, and Ada knows this. But then again, one of the biggest talking points I had pre-time skip was the fact that Ada would know that Sarada and Sumire weren't affected by her brainwashing, as Sarada begged Sasuke to save Boruto, and Ada would be privy to that information. And any conversation that Sarada and Sumire would have about Boruto's innocence, Ada would be privy to that information. But what's truly wild is that outside of just being privy to the fact that Sarada and Sumire were unaffected by her brainwashing, Ada is also willing to give Sarada and Sumire a wish with her omnipotence to overwrite the brainwashing she did to the entire world. However, she says she's only willing to do it if they're willing to assume the risk. Now, we never really identified much of a risk with Ada using her omnipotence. However, I guess there is an inherent risk in changing the memories of the entire world. But I think Sarada and Sumire begging with Ada to try and find a way to undo the brainwashing on all of the residents of the entire Earth actually gives credence to our theory that Sarada will be the person battling against Ada's brainwashing, as Sarada has now exhausted the option of talking it out or having Ada undo it, and therefore it's on to her to break the spell. However, I guess where we went slightly wrong with her idea, but also not really, is that we referred to it as a battle between Ada and Sarada, when in actuality, Ada's kind of on Sarada's side. Like I said, she's willing to give a wish to Sarada and Sumire to undo the memory washing. But since that would just be a new additional memory washing, who knows what would happen. But since Sarada and Sumire don't jump on the idea of re-brainwashing the entirety of humanity, Ada begins to wonder why they weren't affected by the brainwashing, and asks them if they're affected by her charm Shinjutsu. To which Sarada and Sumire say that they are, because Shikamaru before the brainwashing said that it was vital that they don't reveal the fact that they aren't affected by her charm Shinjutsu. Is the second that Daemon realizes that they aren't affected by the charm Shinjutsu, he'll realize that they can kill her, which leads Sarada and Sumire to lie about them being affected by the charm Shinjutsu. However, this is interesting to me, and honestly, it feels like the wrong course of action. Because if we know one thing about the core motivation of Ada, it's that she's trying to find people unaffected by her charm Shinjutsu. And while she seems to be good friends with Sarada and Sumire, if she realized that Sarada and Sumire weren't affected by her charm Shinjutsu, she would be even closer to them, probably willing to do whatever they wanted, in a very similar capacity to how she is with Kawaki. Now, would this lead to them being listed as a potential threat by Daemon? Kind of, but what's another thing we know about Ada? She controls Daemon. I don't think that she would let Daemon kill two people that weren't affected by her charm Shinjutsu. And thus I feel as though them not telling Ada about not being affected by the charm Shinjutsu is actually the wrong thing to do. After that scene with Sarada, Ada, and Sumire, we get served to a scene of Mitsuki and Kawaki. And they both look like they belong in Tokyo Revengers in the best possible way. Big belts are a huge theme of the post-time skip, and honestly, I'm here for it. Like, every member of the Uzumaki family, Kawaki, Himawari, and Naruto, are all on big belt energy. Mitsuki's got 2 belts, Boruto's got 2 belts, and everybody looks sick. Apparently we need more belts. But Mitsuki's wearing black robes, he's let his hair grow out, and as he walks up to Kawaki, Kawaki has to tell him, "Don't let your murderous rage out around me. It makes it hard to breathe," which is crazy. Like, Mitsuki basically has conqueror's hockey. He's able to affect the people around him through bloodlust. But it's revealed to us, like we speculated, that Mitsuki now sees Kawaki as the sun that illuminates his moon, as Kawaki has replaced Boruto. But because of this, Mitsuki is probably the angriest person on Earth at Boruto, going so far as to say that I will kill him with my own hands, which is interesting, because when Boruto was Mitsuki's son, Mitsuki went through very positive feelings. However, now that Kawaki is Mitsuki's son, Mitsuki is now going through violent, revenge-centric feelings, which might be for one of 2 reasons. One, because Kawaki is kind of a worse person than Boruto, and therefore that's affecting Mitsuki as his son has technically changed. Or 2, because technically nobody that Mitsuki could ever get his hands on ever hurt Boruto while Boruto was his son. Regardless, the important thing to all of this is that Mitsuki is real upset with Boruto. But before they can have a long conversation about how they both want to kill Boruto with their bare hands, Kawaki gets intel that Code's claw marks have been found outside of Konoha. So he flies. Yes, that's right. He flies to the claw marks, which makes sense. It's an Otsutsuki ability. Every Otsutsuki we've ever seen has the ability to fly. It's just not common amongst humans. The only humans that we know of with the ability to fly were people who were able to use summonings or super beast imitation scroll, or people who knew lightweight boulder jutsu like the Kage from Iwa, like Mu, the first Uchikage, and Anoki. I don't even think Korotsuchi can fly, actually. Now, before we can see what Kawaki is doing with the code marks, we get to see Himawari, who has my least favorite of my favorite outfits in the post-time skip. That is to say, I like her outfit. I feel as though it's a major upgrade to her character design, but at the same time, it's my least favorite out of all of the post-time skip ones that I do like. Because it's simple, but it fits her personality, and also big belt. Now, when we see Himawari, she's battling it out with Chocho, and she's holding her own against her for like 3 or 4 pages, which is crazy when you consider the fact that Himawari isn't wearing a shinobi headband, which means she's not even a genin yet, and Chocho is not only a genin, but possibly a chunin, and has been so for over 3 years. And yet Himawari is battling on somewhat equal footing with her. Now, in the end, Himawari does lose, as she jumps up to throw some kunai, and Chocho snags her out of the air with her partial expansion jutsu. By the way, since I'm commenting on everybody's outfits in post-time skip, I don't like Chocho's. Something about the butterfly hair clips just I don't love it. But after the conclusion of Chocho and Himawari's battle, Shikadai and Inojin pull up on them. And Inojin is wearing an outfit I would wear tomorrow. Big baggy sweatshirt, crossbody purse, long shorts, long socks, some weird looking slippers. It's Kishimoto's universe, so everybody has to have their toes out. And an entirely new haircut. He kind of looks like a member of a K-pop group, and he looks good. Now, Shikadai is meh. Kind of just wearing like a track jacket and pants, which like isn't a bad look, it's just simple. But all of Team 10 then talked to Himawari about why she wants to become strong, which by the way gives massive credence to my theory that Himawari was going to want to get stronger during the time skip so that she could get revenge for Boruto killing her family. However, apparently I was only half right, because while Himawari did want to get stronger during the time skip, it wasn't so she could go on a Sasuke-like revenge mission against her Itachi, Boruto. In actuality, the reason that Himawari wants to get strong is so she can help Boruto, which actually gives credence to another theory I had about Himawari, which we'll get into in a second. But obviously, all of Team 10 is baffled by the fact that Himawari would want to help Boruto, as they believe that Boruto killed Himawari's father and mother. So the theory that Himawari is going to go on some revenge mission like Sasuke and find out that Boruto's actually not the bad guy is dead in the water. But our theory that Himawari might be one of the most powerful people in Boruto's universe is very much alive, probably more alive than it's ever been, and I'll tell you why. See, not only has Himawari shown the ability to resist Ada's brainwashing, which could be tied to one of two things. The first possibility is the fact that she falls into the same camp as Sarada and Sumire, somebody who loves Boruto, which makes sense. I mean, she is his little sister. But the second possibility is that she has Otsutsuki blood and chakra running through her, which gives her a natural resistance to Ada's Shinjutsu. And that is actually the much more compelling and possible of the two situations. Because here's the thing, not only does Himawari believe that Boruto is innocent, but she also says, I can feel it. My father is probably alive somewhere, which I interpret as Himawari being able to sense her father's chakra existing in a separate dimension from her own, which if you interpret it the way that I've interpreted it, is a wild feat. Let me get into it. See, only one person has ever been able to sense chakra signatures from across dimensions. At least one human, and that one human is Sasuke. And he's done it a couple of different times. Obviously, when he awakens his 6 Tomei Rinnegan, he's able to sense when Kaguya will either open a portal to come out of or to go into, which is a borderline interdimensional feat. However, the much more appropriate feat when talking about Himawari's similarities to Sasuke is when Momoshiki kidnaps Naruto during Boruto's Chunin exam. See, even though Naruto is kidnapped to a separate dimension where Momoshiki can pull out Naruto's chakra, Sasuke is still able to sense that Naruto is alive from a dimension away. Now, we don't know exactly why Sasuke is able to do this. It could be tied into the fact that he has 6 Tomei Rinnegan that allowed him dimensional travel, and therefore he could track chakra between dimensions, which would kind of make sense when you consider the fact that Sasuke was the person tasked with tracking the Otsutsuki through a bunch of different dimensions, or it could tie into the fact that both Naruto and Sasuke have Sage of 6 Pass chakra, and therefore they are intrinsically linked even across dimensions, which also makes sense when you consider the fact that Hagoromo is a dimensional traveler who is able to summon himself from whatever dimension he lives in, where he seeps energy from the Pure Lands and appear in front of Naruto and Sasuke and give them powers. And thus, since the chakra of dimensional traveler runs through the blood of both Naruto and Sasuke, they're able to sense each other wherever they are. So, if, hypothetically, Himawari is able to sense that Naruto is alive from a separate dimension, this would corroborate our theory that Himawari is going to awaken a Tenseigan because she has Hamura and Hagoromo's chakra running through her blood. And I think Kishimoto using the verbiage, I can feel it, is a hat tip to that possibility. Because it's not like she's saying that I believe that my father isn't dead. She's saying she can sense that he's not gone. Now, after Himawari possibly admitting the fact that she's going to be one of the most powerful people in the Boruto universe, we're treated to a scene of Kawaki outside of the walls of Konoha using his Sukuna Hikona to shrink Code's claw marks to a size so small that they are unusable. And it's pretty much revealed that this is what Kawaki's job within Konoha has been, getting rid of Code's claw marks. What's interesting though is that in this moment, Kawaki is talking to 2 guards who say that bastard Code, why doesn't he attack if he visits so frequently? Which actually is a very important line for some other theories we're working with. Now, after deleting the claw mark on the ground, Kawaki realizes that one of the guards also has a claw mark on his back. And thus he uses Sukuna Hikona to delete the claw mark on that guy's back. Now, in this moment, we get to see Kawaki's dojutsu that he got from Ishiki, which doesn't have a name, but the ability that he uses is Sukuna Hikona. What we do know about this dojutsu, though, is that it's based off the Wheel of Dharma, which is a symbol that's very important in Buddhism. Now, the Wheel of Dharma is an 8-pegged wheel that's supposed to represent Buddha's Dharma, which are essentially 8 rules and laws to live by. Not to whitewash this, but it's like Buddhism's 10 commandments. Now, what's interesting is that Kawaki now has all 8 spokes. However, when he first realized the power of his Karma Seal, he only had 2 spokes or 3 spokes, but the more that he used this eye, the more spokes he got. And Ishiki obviously had all 8 spokes. So from this one scene, we now see that Kawaki has mastered all things this dojutsu. As we believed, and by we I mean I believe, that the more spokes you had on this dojutsu, the more mastery and abilities that came along with it. Which, now that we see that Kawaki is now able to enter and leave the Daikoku-ten, is probably one of the abilities granted by one of the spokes. However, before Konoha is able to get all of the guards responsible for finding Code's claw marks together, a member of the police force has one of Code's 10-tailed soldiers pop out of his back, and thus Code's invasion of Konoha has begun. But before the 10-tailed soldier can really do any damage, Kawaki hops onto the scene and takes it out. But the problem with these 10-tailed soldiers is that all of them are covered in claw marks, which means every 10-tailed soldier is just the portal for more 10-tailed soldiers. And thus, as more and more of these 10-tailed soldiers start to crawl out of other 10-tailed soldiers that have already been taken out, Sarada also jumps onto the scene and takes one of them out, which means that Kawaki and Sarada are fighting on the same battlefield against what appears to be a never-ending flow of 10-tailed soldiers, until eventually, out of one of these 10-tailed soldiers comes Code. Now, Code looks like a vampire. Like, he's got the ruffly neck thing and a cloak connected with a chain. Like, everything about him reads like Dracula. Does the fit go dummy hard? Absolutely, but like, maybe from 600 years ago. Now, when Code pops out, there's something concerning about his face, and that's the fact that Code very clearly has had one of his eyes slashed, which he did not have pre-time skip. There was no battle that he was in before the time skip. There was no moment where this could have happened that we didn't see, which means that this slash across his eye definitely happened during the 3-year time skip, which is bad if you like Sasuke breathing. But we'll get into why that might be bad for Sasuke breathing in a second. See, when Code pops out of this 10-tailed soldier, he says, "I'm looking for Boruto." To which Sarada responds, "He's not here, he left 3 years ago," which is why we know the time skip is 3 years long. But Code responds to Sarada and says, "I know, I've been chasing him for the past 2 years," which is weird. See, Boruto left the village 3 years ago, but Code's only been chasing him for 2 years. So what happened during the 1-year gap? On top of that, Code has said that he's stopped looking for Boruto and instead has pulled up on Konoha because he wants to bring Boruto to Konoha so that he can visit his former friend, Kawaki, who harbors deep regret for him. But just as fast as Code can talk any shit, Boruto pulls up. And we're not entirely sure how he gets there. But before we know it, he's standing on Code's face. Now, Code tries to swipe at Boruto, but Boruto jumps up and avoids his claw marks, and everyone freaks out because Boruto has returned to the village. And the chapter ends with Boruto standing in front of Sarada, posed to fight Code. And that's all we get, at least for another month, unfortunately. But I want to go back and talk about a couple of things. Most importantly, I want to talk about how we might need to start coming to grips with the reality that Sasuke is no longer around. See, when somebody gets their eye slashed in the Naruto universe, what happens? Usually, they have that eye replaced. This has been the circumstance with Obito and Kakashi and Boruto. Kakashi has his eye slashed by an Iwa shinobi. He replaces it with Obito's eye. Obito has one side of his body crushed. He replaces the eye he lost with other Sharingan from the Uchiha, and then later a Rinnegan. Boruto has his eye slashed by Kawaki, but we know, because of what we've seen in chapter 1 and episode 1 of Boruto, that he's still got the Jogan in there, which means that the slashing of his eye probably replaced his eye with a Jogan or something, or that through the training that he did with Sasuke during the time skip, he figured out how to use his Jogan and activate it. Regardless of what's happening with Boruto, we know if you get one side slash, you usually get it replaced with a stronger eye. And Code has one eye slashed. And how many people in the universe would be able to get close enough to Code to slash him? The list is very short. It is Ada, it is Daemon, it is Boruto, it is Kawaki, and Sasuke. And we know for a fact that Ada, Daemon, and Kawaki were most definitely not the people who slashed Code, because remember that important thing we said that the guards said earlier on in the chapter about how Code always seems to visit Konoha but never attacks? This means that more likely than not, nobody from Konoha has been engaged in combat with Code, which means it wasn't Daemon or Ada or Kawaki, which leaves two options: Boruto and Sasuke. But how many people pull up to fight against Code in this chapter? Just Boruto. And whether or not you believe that the cloak and the sword that he's wearing are Sasuke's, there is a non-zero chance that they belong to Sasuke. And if Sasuke was still alive or in a capability to fight in any capacity whatsoever, then it would give up two of his most important items to Boruto. Now, obviously, there is a possibility that Boruto just spent 3 years with Sasuke and is emulating his style and his fighting style. And as Sasuke, now with one arm, has become a Kenjutsu master, Boruto picking up a sword and a cloak of his own to emulate Sasuke's Kenjutsu mastery style wouldn't be crazy. However, I think we need to start thinking about the possibility that the reason that Code has only been after Boruto for 2 years is because for the first year, Sasuke was keeping Code off his back. Otherwise, why wouldn't Code be after Boruto for all 3 years? Why wait a whole year after Boruto defected from the village and was therefore as vulnerable as possible to begin your crusade of looking for him? See, Code has his limiters off, has since before the time skip. We also know that he's had his army of 10-tailed soldiers since before the time skip. So it's not like Code needed to do a year of prep before he went to go find Boruto. In fact, it would actually be way more advantageous that he went to go find Boruto before Boruto got any more powerful during the time skip. So why wait a year? And if Code has been looking for Boruto for the past 2 years, that means Code and Boruto haven't fought in the last 2 years, which means possibly Boruto and Sasuke had a battle against Code 2 years ago that Sasuke may not have made it out of. And the slashed eye in Code's head might hold one of Sasuke's eyes. Considering the track record for replacing slashed eyes with better eyes, I don't think that's a crazy theory. Not to mention that Code having one of Sasuke's eyes and possibly being the killer of her father would give Sarada an immense motivation to wipe him off the map. And since Boruto's real fight is against Kawaki, Sarada being the person to battle against Code would make more sense. But then again, this is only chapter 1 of 2 Blue Vortex, so we can't say anything with certainty. But what we can say is that things are looking up, and I am so excited for chapter 2. What do you guys think? Did you enjoy this chapter? Do you think any of my theories could possibly be correct? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. September cannot come fast enough.